Hello everyone and welcome to another Minecraft video. I'm going to start doing a series of videos all on farms that can be made in the game, and the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to do a beginner version, an intermediate version for people that are a bit further into the game, and then finally a very crazy over the top version that really no one is likely to be able to even build, but just for the fun of it, why not, you know? So today's episode is going to focus on something that I think is a really good basic farm that everyone needs, especially early game, and that's a potato farm. It's good food, good saturation, and pretty easy to get in the early game. So like we said, we're going to do a basic beginner farm, an intermediate farm, and a crazy farm, which is just below me right now, and I'm looking forward to showing you. So without further ado, let's get on with the video. So for the easy version, the first thing you need to do is just clear out a load of space for your farm. I like to do this in a 7x10 area, and I'll show you why. So here's our 7x10 area. As you can see, the farmland isn't going to stay like that. I'm just using this to mark it out quickly. So what we're going to do is dig a trench of 3 long, about 2 blocks in each side, and fill that with water. Then we're going to go and farmland the rest of it with a hoe. And then all we've got to do is wait for those water blocks to saturate the farmland so that it's all ready. Not that you can't grow on it anyway. The reason that I've done this size area is because 7x10 is obviously 70, and then we've used up 6 blocks for the water, which means that once everything is grown here, that's going to be 1 stack's worth of potatoes to plant the lot of it. And you're going to yield a lot more than that anyway, so you'll always have enough to plant it, and you're always going to know how much you need. So the next thing you need to do is create a bit of a border. This isn't something that's 100% necessary. I just think it makes it look a bit nicer. You're neating the whole thing up a little bit. And also it's nice to have somewhere to put the light source, which you definitely need if you're going to be growing crops. You can't grow them in the dark, unfortunately. Okay, so that's the border done. You might notice that I've put smokers in the corners. There's a reason for that. That's because we're going to have all of these stocked up with fuel, so that every time you yield a crop in, you can just whack a stack in each of these, and that's gonna mean that you've got a constant supply, always cooking. With that in mind, it might be a good idea to put a couple of chests just on the side. Do you know what? No, barrels. I think barrels, that's what, in fact, do you know what? I'm going to get rid of these torches. We're going to put some jack-o'-lanterns in for the light source, 1 each side, and a barrel on the other side. Then it's all symmetrical, it's all lit up, and we've all got a place to store the crops. I'm making this better as I go along. Much better. That's fantastic. So we've got sort of a spiral pattern going around there, jack-o'-lanterns, barrels, smokers that we can fuel up. All you got to do then is plant your crop. So I would say that's my version of an easy farm. So next one is to make a normal slash intermediate potato farm, and I think for that one we're going to make use of some villagers. I think just before we crack on with that normal farm, actually, I'm just going to address something. Yep, I maintain that the slabs are better for things like sugarcane. However, in this case, I may have made a slight mistake. Don't judge me, alright? Alright, so the first thing that we're actually going to build with this is the storage for the crops that we harvest, which I know might seem a bit backwards, but it's just a lot easier to visualize how high this thing needs to be if we do this first. Alright, so this is our storage area. You put your fuel in here, the crops are going to come into here, the potatoes, they're going to get cooked, and then they're going to fill up this chest here. The reason I've done this first is so that you can see just how high off the ground this needs to be. This is your ground floor. So the actual farm itself is going to be above this. And it's very much based on a farm by Impulse SV, but with a few tweaks. So yeah, I'm going to get building that now, and you'll see just how this works. Alright, so first of all, you need to build up this little area around the hopper, and you need to put trapdoor here and a trapdoor here. This means that any villagers cannot get in or out. Needs to be an adult villager, of course. Next thing you do is you're going to want to build like a... You're going to want to build some sort of place where you can put a minecart with a hopper. And then you're going to want to break the rail, then you're going to break the block, that's going to fall down there, and you need to do that twice. Alright, so once you've done that, go ahead and get yourself a villager in here. It's easy for me, I can literally just go to the spawn eggs and find one, and that's all I have to do. I feel sorry for anyone that's building this in survival, as most of you will be, because I think we both know what a pain it is to try and control where villagers go. So there we go. Next thing you want to do is build yourself up a patch of dirt like this that you're going to use as your farmland. Now you might notice that this is a lot smaller than the Impulse SV one and other farms of the same design, and that's true. The reason I've done it this size is because this is still going to be like our normal size farm, nothing too difficult. You could make it bigger if you want, that's totally fine. The reason I've done it this size is because if I whack this stair in there and get it the right way first and fill that, that should be enough to turn all of this into farmland without having to put in additional water source blocks, which just makes life easier if you're wanting to do this quickly. Alright, so I just realised that it was raining when I said that, and so I couldn't really get a proper view of whether that was working or not, because obviously rain stops farm blocks from turning back to dirt. Once I stopped the rain, I realised that this doesn't quite reach far enough. So yeah, you might want to change this a little bit. Of course, if you do, if you are going to make an area for your farmer, he needs a bed as well. So let's just see if we can solve this problem here quickly. So that seems to have solved that. We've got all of these blocks saturated. The only ones that didn't were these three at the end, but I figured it doesn't really matter. That can be just where he stands when he's chucking food to the other villager that's in there. So not a big deal. Of course, feel free to improvise your own ways. You'll probably get a lot more out of it. I'm just trying to do something quick and easy at this point. So the next thing we need to do is whack down a workstation for this villager, because he needs to be a farmer and he needs to be able to work as well. So we'll do that. Pop that there. Now we don't want him climbing on top of that and jumping off and crushing the crops. So next thing you need to do is put a light source on top. I favour the shroom light. So, but just be mindful that shroom lights actually can go into a composter. So, I'm not. Am I in creative? I should be. There we go. And that's that. Alright, so once you've got that all planted up, the next thing you need to do is put your villager in there. He should turn himself into a farmer once he stops being awkward like villagers are. Come on, get on with it, mate. He's spinning around. He looks like he's having a great time, but does he even know what he's doing? So I figured it out. Basically, and this is going to sound very odd, but it's important which way you put the villagers into these things. So let me just take you through this. I had to kill that guy. Well, this is a new guy, but the guy that was there before, I had to get rid of him. And then this guy accepted the workstation. I don't know why that is, but basically I think you need to put this guy into the whole thing first, and he has to be the only villager in here. Then he'll accept the workstation, and then you can put this guy in as the bait, if you like, afterwards. As long as you do that, you should be fine. I think it's safe to say that for saying that you don't have to do anything to this farm after you've built it, you're probably not going to eat as much food as what this does produce. It's pretty good, really, especially using smokers. Obviously, this smelting system is stackable. You could put one on each corner if you really wanted to. Just the crop area would be slightly smaller. This is also stackable as well. You can, instead of putting a roof on, you could just build another layer with another farmer, another villager, and just keep it going down. It would appear that he throws at least a stack each time he goes over to this guy in the minecarts. So if he does that twice a day, once in the morning when he gets up and once before he goes to bed, that's 2 stacks a day, 20-minute day. So that's 6 stacks every hour. And doing the maths in my head, that comes to 384 potatoes every hour, which for the small amount of effort that it takes to build one of these is pretty good going, really. So I'd say that for the normal size farm, this is pretty good. And now we're on to the insane farm. And I think what we're basically going to do is do an amplified version of a similar thing. So let's just see how mad we can get this potato farm, how fast we can get that generating. This is going to be the main chunk of the video, I think. Well, are you ready for it? Because it's a bit OTT, to be honest. I had a lot of fun building this. I feel like I learned a lot with the redstone as well. I had to make up a few bits myself, which is not something I usually do. I usually just go on YouTube like everyone else. But I thought, no, I'm gonna figure it out, and I'm pretty pleased with it. So let's just have a look at this. We've got the tier system from the normal intermediate farm, but we've put it 3, and we've done 4 of them. 4 lots of 3. So already we're making a lot more. Now, I then hooked this up to some super smelters that I've built, which then get filtered down and spat into these water streams, which then go into the storage system. So this is one monster farm. I mean, it's not been on very long. We're talking maybe a few minutes it's been on. But yeah, it seems to be that already, you know, that this is about 15 minutes. And that's more food than I'm going to be able to eat in a few hours, maybe several days. If you were to do a bit of an AFK session overnight, I think you'd probably fill all these chests quite easily. You might want to make the storage system a little bigger, to be honest. I maybe undershot that slightly. But to go into how this works, I've built a bit of a thing over here. So this will work regardless of the resource. It obviously doesn't have to be potatoes, it just has to be something that can be smelted. So on this version I've just done normal furnaces because they'll do anything. So let's imagine that for some reason I've got a silly amount of gold ore that I want smelting up. So let's say that I've got so much of that I'm just gonna chuck a load into this hopper. Get the lot in. So that hopper's gonna suck that up. Now what happens now is that when that filters down to the hopper that goes into the chest here, that's detected by this comparator, which pushes this piston out, which disconnects this repeater from powering this block at the end, which means that the cart will stop because these redstone torches will only power 9 rails. So on the 10th one, which was that one there, that will unpower. That's powered by the repeater into that block, and it's the same lower down, same version of a different thing, just with redstone dust. The reason you can't use redstone dust here is because you've got 2 blocks next to it. So it might power this one, but you could also power the comparator, which just breaks the circuit. So on this one, you want a repeater. You can use a repeater here as well, but redstone dust is fine if you want to save a bit on resource. So if I go in my fuel box, whack a stack of fuel in there, it's going to turn this off, and we get our fuel cart filling up, and once that's done it's going to fuel all of the furnaces, and then we should see, once that's done, all these furnaces get powered and turned on. It should evenly distribute them as well, if I'm right. Give it a minute to sort itself out. Any second now. There we go. And there it goes. Just check that they're all even. Yeah, fantastic. Maybe slightly out, maybe. No, I'd say probably not actually. That's great. Nice even distribution. And then whatever gets done, that's obviously, in the case of this farm over here, there's hoppers underneath that are going to put it all down into the other circuit that's going to spit it out into the storage system. The way that works is that it filters down into this dropper here. When this dropper has got items in it, that's detected by the comparator, which powers this repeater, which powers this block, which powers this comparator, which does, it's in subtract mode, and so it does a bit of a ticking loop, like a clock effect, which then powers the dropper going back in this side and spits all of the items into the water stream, which go into the storage system, which I won't explain because hoppers into chests doesn't really need explaining. So that's how it works. I don't know why anyone would go to this length to make a potato farm, if I'm honest. It's I don't know why you'd need this many potatoes at all. There's nothing actually stopping you from automating the whole thing. If you had a kelp farm or a bamboo farm, you could also get the fuel to a point where it's fully automatic as well. So you literally all you'd have to do is AFK and nothing else. At the moment, all you have to do is fill this barrel with fuel. The only thing I will say is you don't want to overfill it. In a situation where you completely filled the barrel and the hopper, or the chest and the hopper, you'd end up with too much and it'd just clog the system. What would happen is you'd have still items left in this hopper, keeping the rail here powered off, even after the chest had filled, and so this would actually never take off again. So you don't want to do that. And on a similar thought, you wouldn't want to put an infinite amount of stacks on this thing here, otherwise you get the same with your resource input, it'd just get clogged. But I'd say the chances of that happening in a survival situation are extremely low, to be honest with you. You'd have to be some kind of maniac to clog it to that point. So that's it really. That is 3 ways to build a potato farm: easy, intermediate, and overpowered. I think I've gone crazy with the overpowered, to be honest. This is the most overpowered potato farm I've ever seen. Possibly, if anyone finds a more overpowered one, please send me the link because I'd like to have a look. But I'm pretty happy with this. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did like this sort of content, you want to see more of these simple, intermediate, and then overpowered farms, do leave a like. Let me know in the comments, and of course subscribe if you want to see more. And that'll be it. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Cheers.